afternoon. I'm CJ Peterson with The Journey is Real, where we talk to real people with real passions who share a real portion of their heart. Today, my guest is Ryan Thomas of Hope Store New Beginnings Center, and he'll be talking about his passion, which is helping those in domestic violence situations. Hope Store is not only the emergency situation part, but they also take care of the after. They help people with counseling. They help people with, getting back up on their feet and making sure that they're okay. I am a domestic violence survivor, and I actually did go through a Hope Store, and I benefited from their program. And to that end, I would love to make sure that everybody is aware of them and the help that they can provide. I guess I did that prior to meeting my husband. My husband is currently beautiful, wonderful. I call him super hubby. He's awesome. And I wouldn't have met him, and I wouldn't be where I am today if it actually wasn't for Hope Store giving me that leg up. I did find some interesting statistics I'd like you to read. I'm aware of them only because of what I went through, but not everybody is aware of them. According to the CDC, 1 in 4 women and 1 in 7 men will experience physical violence by their intimate partner or at some point during their lifetimes. About 1 in 3 women and nearly 1 in 6 men experience some form of sexual violence during their lifetimes. Like I said, coming from that background, I am aware of that. A lot of people don't acknowledge the fact that men can experience domestic violence.
Absolutely.
And it is true. It is, and I've run across them myself, of different gentlemen that I've run into over the years. And that is a huge thing to acknowledge. Another one is the children. The children that see it. You guys go in there and you also help stop that cycle from going on to the next generation. And so I applaud you guys and all the volunteers that are there and all those who work there for everything that you guys do. And I just want to thank you for that. To start, I do want to thank you for your time, Ryan. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Share a little bit with us about what you do at Hope Store and why.
Yeah, sure. I'd be happy to. Well, also, I'm honored to be on the podcast. Thank you again for the invitation. Also, I think more importantly, to let people know about the issue, one, but two, more importantly, that there are free services available to those who are being victimized or have been in the past. For me, my role at Hope Store New Beginnings Center is I'm the community education program manager, and really I see. You touched on the direct services that we provide to survivors and their families.
Mm-hmm.
I really see what we do as kind of threefold. One is, like you said, we help support the victims themselves and their families with a variety of free services, shelter, housing, counseling, legal services, and there's some others as well. 2, we also have a battering intervention and prevention program. So we actually have a program where we work with the offenders as well to hold them accountable and really to get them to kind of question their previously held beliefs that they used to justify the abuse in the first place. And what I do is hopefully through educating the young people by going into middle schools, high schools, colleges, also training adults and professionals, is prevent the young people from needing our victim services or our battering intervention and prevention services.
So you're stopping the cycle before it even starts. That's your goal.
That's the goal. That's the ideal. Is the hope is one day that I could work myself out of a job, essentially.
Now, how did you stumble upon Hope Store? Because obviously your journey is different than mine of how we got to Hope Store and how to help Store.
Sure. So, people ask me that all the time. It's a really good question. And, I wish I had a really kind of sexy answer to it. I tell people I'm a recovering middle school teacher. So I taught middle school for 10 years. In my own experience as well, I grew up witnessing abuse in my household as well. Also, have been involved in at least one abusive relationship as an adult. And so, I'm affected by it on a personal level, but I thought for me, quite frankly, young people today, they don't really care so much about how to set up an experiment or find the circumference of a circle. To be able to now talk to young people about things that really matter to them, like relationships, and what does a healthy relationship look like, and what do you do if you are in an unhealthy relationship, it's much more relevant to them. And I really feel that the time that I spend with them and those connections are much more enduring than getting them to learn something that they may apply once on a standardized test and then forget. So it's much more rewarding for me, and I think also for the young people that I work with as well.
Now, people have asked me, they're like, why did you stay so long? That's always the biggest question of, or if it were me, I wouldn't have done it. I would have gone up the first sign. Here's the thing I explain to people, and what I tell them is it's like sticking a frog in water. If you stick a frog in boiling water, it's going to immediately jump out because obviously it knows it's in danger. However,
Right.
when it comes to abuse, it usually starts with mental abuse, and you don't always see it. And it's kind of this slow level up of abuse. And next thing you know, you're in hot water and you don't know how to get out and you're stuck.
Right. Right.
And
I
that's
think
where you guys come in.
right, and I think that is one of the you know one of the most common questions that people ask me and that people want to know about people in that situation is, why did you stay so long? Why don't you just leave? Why did you stay? And essentially that is one of the worst things that you could ask or say to someone in that situation is essentially a form of victim blaming.
Mhm.
And right, the tendency is, like you said, first time they put their hands on me, boom, I hit them over the head with the frying pan, I'm out of there. But like you said, it does begin very slow. And oftentimes it begins in childhood, where we know that, you know, young girls who grow up witnessing dad abuse mother, they're 3 times more likely to become victims themselves in a future relationship because that behavior becomes normalized. It's also, and usually many times survivors will report at the very beginning of these abusive relationships it's almost too good to be true, or it's this whirlwind romance, and they're kind of seduced by being told everything they wanted to hear. They treat them so special. This
Another
kind
one,
of
another one is like the white knight syndrome, where this guy comes in to rescue you from whatever situation you're in worse, and now without realizing you're actually jumping, from the frying pan into the fryer, literally.
absolutely, yeah. And
Um,
so, where that initial trust is gained, like you said, they'll begin with some verbal criticism, teasing, and then say they were just joking, which they can then become criticizing, and kind of a slow erosion of self-esteem, which can then, progress into the more severe forms of emotional abuse, and then physical, sexual, sometimes, and very often financial abuse.
another way I explained it to different people was it's kind of like your life is a bookshelf. It's got tons of books on it. That's your story. And somebody comes up and goes, "Oh, hey, that's an interesting book. Can I read that?" Sure, no problem. So they go and they take that book off your shelf. And they come by and go, "Oh, that's another good one. Can I read that one?" Like, sure. So they pull that one off. And they keep pulling books off. And before you know it, your bookshelf is empty because they're holding all of your stories. They're holding all of your life in their hands. And you feel like you're trapped and you're like, well, how do I get all of those books back?
Yeah, I like that analogy. And very oftentimes, sometimes they'll start to replace their own
The
stories,
story. Hmm.
right? Yeah, and to where suddenly their conception or definition of you becomes your vision, or how you see yourself,
Hmm.
right? Through this distorted lens of power and control, essentially.
Hmm. And in essence, that's what it is. It's power and it's control over you. And so you don't feel like you have any choices. You don't feel like you have any options. Can you explain in a little bit more detail? I kind of generally went over it. What services Hope Store offers?
Yeah, absolutely. It's kind of like you said in the very beginning. Many times people need immediate assistance, or their physical safety is compromised. And so, the entry point for anyone wanting to seek services at Hope Store New Beginning Center is our 24-hour hotline. It's answered in English and Spanish, 7 days a week, 365. And if someone need immediate shelter, we do have 2 emergency shelters with a total of 44 beds in Plano and in Garland. We also provide any daily needs, food, clothing, care, towels, sheets, because many times families will leave with nothing. And in addition to providing the shelter for the physical safety, we also have our counseling and our therapists who provide individual and group counseling, both for adults and children, for the children who witness the abuse and sometimes experience it themselves directly. We also provide, like you took advantage of, our transitional housing program for clients who come out of our shelter. They can stay for 90 days, but what happens after 3 months? We can help get them into an apartment and get help subsidizing the rent, help with the deposit, setting up the utilities, etc. Really to empower them with some skills and some initial support to eventually help them become self-sufficient and live independently and hopefully, safety.
Mhm.
We also have legal services to help our clients that may need getting a protective order, legal advice, child custody or divorce cases. And we also have a variety of case management services for any other medical needs or job training or anything else that we can't provide. We can also refer out to our community partners as well.
Awesome. I think that's great. I'm aware that you guys do some fundraisers. One of them in particular is Hope Store. I can't remember what it's called. Hope's Closet, Hope Store.
Our resale store
Yes.
was initially named Carissa's Closet.
I knew it was something
Um,
closet.
yes, and uh, the story behind that is, and I can't remember the name of the company, but one of their employees, Carissa, was tragically murdered by her husband, and so they provided us with the initial monetary donation to help establish the store, and it's since been renamed Hope Store Resale Store, and it really serves 2 functions. Um, the public, the community members can donate gently used items. It may be furniture, home decor, clothing, shoes, etc. And our clients get vouchers where they can come and essentially shop for free for anything that they may need when they're getting uh, becoming self-sufficient. And then 2, the public can also come and purchase items, and then 100% of those funds, the proceeds from those sales, go back to fund our free services like shelter, counseling, etc.
I think that's wonderful. I think that's awesome.
Yeah,
So you're helping the community and the community is helping you in return. And I think that's great. So in some generic terms, because I know you can't do specifics, are there any stories that you've run across along the way that you care to share in general detail
sure. And
that are just kind of close to your heart that, this is why I do what I do?
right. A couple come to mind. One, I remember pulling up to the outreach center at work one day, and I was getting out of my car, and a woman and a young lady came up to me, and the woman was actually worked at our resale store, and her daughter was there, and her daughter said, "Hey, you came to my school and spoke about teen dating abuse." And I said, "Oh, really?" And I don't remember seeing her. She said, "I was in the back. I didn't say anything. I was shy. I had my head down, but what you said really impacted me." And so I went home that night, talked to my mom about this abusive relationship I was in with this boy. And
Oh,
um, s-
wow.
so she was able to get out of that abusive relationship, and more importantly, opened a dialogue with her mother. And so, this kind of drew them even closer together, and, you know, provided a pathway for her and her daughter to have a healthier relationship and establish that communication. So that's one of those things where you just never know what impact you're going to have, and even if you can touch one person, it's the miracle of one. um, Another story in general that is close to my heart is a woman. She had experienced abuse as a child, all the way through her teen relationships, and then even in her marriages, emotional, verbal abuse, physical abuse. She was able to get into our shelter program, and then transitioned into our housing program. And she worked really hard, and she really took advantage of all of those support systems that are in place. um, to Now she has written a book, and she does public speaking, and she's really has, like her past, how, despite it being so tragic, has now become an asset that she uses to help others in the community, and that's just a beautiful.
Since you bring that up, I kind of did the same thing, sort of
Yeah.
my own twist and my own way. And I think that's great. I think, good on her. I think that's awesome. What I have is the Seasons of Change book of mine. It's the Grace Restored series. A portion of this proceeds do go to Hope Store, and it has from the series inception. The reason it's going to Hope Store is because it has to deal with domestic violence. So a part of me is in these. I always tell people I'm not telling you which part though. But it's a way to get the story out in a way that's real and in a way that people can find it. In the books, I also have, Hope Store's link. That way, people who may need to contact you can, or can get help. And so, that's one way of me to give back to what you guys did for me.
Yeah, thank you so much, CJ. That's beautiful. I love that story.
But okay, so as I said, a portion of the proceeds does go to Hope Store. We have a few more minutes. Is there anything you'd like to say to those listening, either to those being, to those who are, to those currently in?
Yeah, I think, in this line of work, it can seem hopeless sometimes, particularly when like you mentioned the statistics, and constantly being reminded of the ways that human beings can treat other human beings, right? Particularly those who love them or purport to love them. And
That was the hardest, honestly, that was one of the hardest things for me to process, is why somebody who's supposed to love me would be treating me this way.
right, and they're not mutually exclusive. And most often, one of the reasons why survivors have explained to me why they stayed is because they did love the person who was abusing them, and then that makes it extra hard, especially when you throw in financial concerns, children, fear, all these complex human emotions. It becomes not so easy, sometimes impossible, to just leave. But I guess my message would be that this is not hopeless work. It is hopeful work, what we do here. And you are a shining example of that. And it should give everyone hope, and myself included, that what we do here, what you're helping us do, what our volunteers help us do, and our clients, is remind us that change is possible, and that our past does not have to define us, and in fact we can turn that into an asset that we can use to empower others. I would say that also one of the most powerful things that we have as human beings is to talk to another human being, and sometimes just telling somebody, even if it's just your best friend, what's going on can be very empowering. And of course, anyone can call our 24-hour hotline, 972-276-0057, and speak with a trained advocate, just someone to talk to, about safety planning, if you have questions, or if someone is ready to seek services.
I mean, a lot of times in that situation, you begin to wonder if you start to question your own sanity, because this person is charismatic to everybody else, and to you, it's like a switch has been flipped. And so, you kind of start to question your own sanity. Make sure you talk to your friends, talk to somebody, let them know, hey, this is going on. Does this sound right to you?
Absolutely, I love that. Yeah, exactly. And until we hear ourselves say it, or we hear someone back say, in fact, that's not right. You're
That
not
is not
crazy. I
okay.
believe you.
Mhm.
There is help out there. It, it can be a very, like you said, you can kind of question your own sanity or reality, and oftentimes that is an intentional tactic that perpetrators use, right? Gaslighting.
Exactly. So, well, I do want to thank you so much for your time. And I know it is precious. Um, Gentle reminder that cjpetersonwrites.com has the grocery store series. A portion of the proceeds does go to Hope Store. Um, could you please restate the hotline again to make sure that people who may need that have it? They might have missed part of it. So if you could say it twice to make sure that they can write it down if they need it.
Yeah, absolutely. So our 24-hour hotline is 972-276-0057. Again, 972-276-0057. Or all of explanation of our services can be found at hdnbc.org. And that stands for Hope's Door New Beginning Center.
Thank you so much. Another thing I want to explain real quick before we go is the difference between a victim and a survivor. In this world, a lot of times people like to play the victim card. As a domestic violence survivor, you have walked through it, you've carried the scars of it, and you are a survivor. You're not a victim. And so I wanted to encourage those out there that, if you think there's no hope, Hope Store is there telling you, hello, we even have it in our name. Go to them or go to a local one that can help you. They're there to help you 24/7. My name is CJ Peterson of cjpetersonwrites.com, and I want to thank you so much for listening to The Journey is Real, where we talk to real people with real passions who share a real part of their heart. I want to thank you, Ryan, for your time, and until next time, see you then.